Capitol.
So that bill calls for at least 5 and maybe a 6th Republican to sit on the committee. The question is, will Congressman Adam Kinzinger be among them? He's kind enough to join us this morning with a closer look at what's obviously still a controversial topic to this day. Good morning to you, Congressman.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Always good to see you. Let's get right into this. Speaker Pelosi calls this independent commission needed to get to the truth. We know what Mitch McConnell has said. He calls this political theater. Where do you rest in this debate? And if you were asked, Congressman, would you sit that committee?
Yeah, so this is not my preference because we actually had a January 6th commission that was evenly split. We passed it out of the House. Only 30 Republicans voted for it, and it was blocked in the Senate. And so I'll be voting for this today. It's not my favorite option, but the point is we can't keep pretending like January 6th didn't happen. We need full accounting for it, and then we can move on. Everybody wants to move on like this was a decade ago. Well, we have people that aren't even, that are coming up with conspiracy theories over and over. If I'm asked to serve on it, I'm going to consider it. I haven't been asked. It's not necessarily anything I'd look forward to doing. But if I thought that, my voice was needed to get to the bottom of it, it would be something I would be open to and then have those conversations.
And before we get on to what you're working on, what do you hope when you say get to the bottom of this? What would the outcome of such a committee be?
We just need answers. We need to know, were there members of Congress, members of the administration that were involved in coordinating this? Who do we know was involved deep? So the FBI is going to have answers to a lot of this, but that's going to take a couple years as it goes through the criminal court system. Right now, you had a month ago on a national news network, a talk show host basically say that the FBI did January 6th. The FBI, somehow had done this. That's crazier than even some of the 9/11 conspiracy theories. And the longer we don't have answers to this, the longer and crazier some of those conspiracies can be. So we do need to get to the bottom of it, because the more people that stand up and say it was Antifa or BLM or, the FBI or aliens, whatever it was, it makes stronger my commitment to say we've got to find out what the truth is here.
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't get to some of the other work that's actually going on as well in Washington. I want to talk about the pandemic. It exposed a lot of supply chain issues, especially when it comes to goods from overseas. You recently introduced the Made in America's Act. You argue this is an issue of national security. How so?
Yeah, it really is. So when the pandemic started, what we noticed even prior to us knowing it was a pandemic is China was buying up all this personal protective equipment, the PPE. And then at one point, a few months into the pandemic, they actually threatened to cut off our PPE, plus some of the compounds and drugs we use to treat this stuff. So what that came to realize is, man, our supply chain is basically at the mercy of a country like China, which certainly doesn't have U.S. interests in mind. So what the Made in America's Act does very briefly is it creates basically a National Security Council for manufacturing, finds out where those critical supply chains are, and incentivizes them to relocate into the United States. And if they can't to the United States, at least to our hemisphere, and that can help solve some of the economic issues, but it protects those critical supply chains we have if something like this would come up again.
Yeah, those critical supply chains, it's amazing how wide-ranging they have been. Okay, let's talk about this infrastructure deal now. First, it looked like it wasn't going to happen, and then somehow there was a bipartisan deal struck. But then President Biden threatened to veto a smaller package. Where do we currently stand this morning, and do you believe Republicans and Democrats can actually come together on an agreement on this?
I stand as confused as anybody, because it's just all we do out here, by the way, is just play politics every moment we think about the next election. That's all we do, and that has to change, especially on something like infrastructure. I'm still optimistic we can get a bipartisan infrastructure deal done. There's probably going to be a little wrangling between now and maybe probably leaving for the summer break, but I'm still fairly optimistic. I think this is a good deal, what we're seeing. Anytime you can bring both sides to the table. But, for a little bit, and I think just to anybody else out there, take a deep breath and maybe at least spend one day not worried about the next election and do, stuff for the American people. We want solutions. We want solutions, less fighting.
Hopefully the next time we talk to you, it'll be about where that money is going to go. Maybe you have a wish list, and we'd love to hear some of that. But we got to end it there. Congressman, always appreciate your time.
Thank you for joining us.